Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to World End ECONOMiCA. I said that right for the first time. Hello, Mossy, and welcome to a new visual novel. Well, not really new, it's relatively old. Let's just get started. In the past, people really believed that there was a doorway to an alternate world on the dark side of the moon. This dark side could not be seen from Earth, and it was only a few decades ago that images were successfully taken of it. As Earth had been visited, mapped, and divested of all its mysteries and secrets, it was made painfully clear that there were no rabbits on the moon, no traces of aliens, and certainly no pieces of portals to alternate worlds. This was perhaps why the journey to the dark side of the moon through the vastness of space was so fascinating for me when my parents took me there as a kid. Mankind had never set foot upon any of the glittering stars that were arrayed before me. When I realized that, I felt a desire to leave my footprints where no one had gone before. It wasn't until after I learned more about the world that it dawned on me what a foolhardy dream that was. Regardless, it was something that shook me to the core, so much that I nearly wet my pants. Afterwards, everything before me became a stepping stone in my mind, towards my dream of setting foot where no one had gone before. I had no time to waste. If I didn't act now, then someone else would leave their footprints there first. Faster, faster, much faster. The population continued to grow, and time ruthlessly slipped away. Only a handful could be at the vanguard of it all. Not a day went by when I didn't ponder what I could see. It would be a new frontier where familiar places, customs, and the past would not exist. A frontier where every small movement I made would become a part of history. Footprints of the first humans on the moon could still be preserved in the Sea of Tranquility Memory Hall. Those footprints told uncountable tales. Footprints left in the sand, measuring just shy of 30 inches. Even so, they were amazing footprints that sent shivers down my spine. With a click, my mobile PC turned on. Why not just talk? Isn't it just a laptop? I woke to the whirring of my hard drive. Since I had fallen asleep, curled up in my chair clutching my PC, it was difficult to get my movie to move. My body felt so stiff, I was so sure that a careless motion would break something. Even so, I rather enjoyed the sensation of slowly stretching out my limbs from this cramped position after waking up. It made me feel alive and truly let me know that I was awake. I willed my arms to move, then my legs. Although hardly efficient, this was how I chose to do things and was what happened when I woke up every morning. It was a satisfying action and one I never had the chance to savor before I left home. On top of the table, I had left my rather crude diode lamp on, and a coarse layer of fat had formed on the surface of the leftover coffee in my dirty cup. Beside my cup was a half-eaten chocolate bar, which I reached for and crammed in my mouth. I swallowed the unpleasantly sweet chunk as the PC finished booting up. At that moment, my brain went to work as I verified that I had my wallet, memory cards, and bag on me, that none of it would have been stolen while I was asleep. It appeared that I had survived the previous night. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. However, in order for me to survive today, I would have to make some money. It had been 3 months and 12 days since I left home. Telling myself that I wasn't some well-to-do kid pretending to be a ruffian, I flipped over the organic display. What the fuck? I was staying at a cheap net cafe. It was a good-for-nothing establishment that leached with Wi-Fi from another shop, and its customers were of equally questionable quality. Whoa! Hey, kid! Well, fine morning, isn't it? As I left the booth to wash my face, an unkempt clerk greeted me as he played a game at the counter. I figured he wasn't much he wasn't so much being friendly as much as he was making sure I knew he was watching me. The only entrance and exit were next to the counter, and off to the side on the wall were the words "Everyone pays, no freeloaders." Even though this sad excuse for a building was built on a sewage canal, money was always collected. The only thing that concerned me when I left home to find a place to sleep was finding a place to sleep. Though I had some money, I couldn't really change my appearance. Fine morning? I'm not fond of your sarcasm, Earth Dog. Wow. The clerk's face twisted into a smile at my retort. Oh ho! It is unfortunate to not know what a real morning looks like, since the weather here is just a computer program. He said that lightly as he returned his gaze to his game. He seemed to be of Earth, though I wonder if he came to the moon as an unskilled laborer, got fired, and ended up here as an outcast of some sort. Why don't you head on back to Earth then? At my words, he turned briefly to glance at me and laughed sarcastically. Things are a bit better here than down there anyway. That's how he responded. Moon scum. Without responding, I went to the washroom. My name is Yoshiharu Kawara. I was born and raised in this lunar city, though I was genuine moon scum. I returned to my booth, entered my password, and booted up the tool application on my computer. A welcome screen, whose only good point was its friendliness, was followed by a merciless and desolate landscape, much akin to the surface of the moon. Countless lines of words flickered on the screen. I imagine it's the kind of effect you get if you took a picture of the undeveloped part of the moon's surface with a low-res camera. The screen showed a session of a lunar stock exchange. This was the kind of place for a moon scum like me to make a living. Get rich without needing to break a sweat. I didn't have enough time to earn an honest living. I took a deep breath and went to business. That's some crazy music. Is that me? Huh. Downward revision to the first fiscal quarter of the CK Bio. Possibility of an investigation into Emerald Industries over suspicions of collusion. Regarding inflation, the board of directors at the Lunar Central Bank ... With one eye on that stream of news, I focused on managing 220 stocks, picking up those with large price fluctuations. For instance, if one stock had moved 10% on the previous day and another had moved 1%, there was probably a high chance that the stock that moved 10% could move by 1% today. I would trade it on the notion alone. Putting it into consideration the mood of the market based on the news, I would buy stocks with large fluctuations. Within the turbulent up and down movement of the price, I could extract some profit, which is what I occupied myself between 9 AM and 5 PM lunar time. Between those hours, the only things that went into my mouth were food that I could eat one-handed and drinks. To be honest, I'd be so engrossed in trading that breaks were uncommon. Even if I had the free time to take a break, I would rather use it to look at my screen, grasp price fluctuations, and do some trades. After all, there's a difference of a few minutes that when making the call to buy or sell could easily mean the difference between gaining or losing 1 or 2%. My war chest was 72,000 mools. 1% of that came out to be 700 mools. A store clerk here would make 7 mools an hour at best. This was a place where a public school teacher's monthly starting salary was 1,200 mools, so I could make in a few minutes what they could make in a month. Of course, over the course of a day's trading, some people would win and other people would lose. But I was on the winning streak of all streaks, and before I knew it, my seed money of 1,000 mools had balled into 72 times that. The one and only time I did honest, hard labor in my life was to build that seed money. Since then, I'd just been building my assets through these trades. While the gains were a little less than what they used to be, the greater your assets grew, the faster they grew. So it didn't bother me. It'd be what they call a snowball effect. I'd never seen snow before, but I've seen videos of Earth before, and thus I was familiar with it. I decided that I was going to make even more money and then live in the center of this lunar city. It It's a place where tons of ridiculously smart people were gathered. It said that 70% of this world's wealth was held by the people there. I'd lived it up there, and back of my mind was high on these kinds of delusions as I performed trade after trade like a man possessed. That's why it took me a whole while to notice. I finally did after I got smacked on the head. Yo, kid. I turned around to see the clerk from before standing in front of the booth's open door. What, you want money? Since when did this place become prepay? Or what, was it something else? Was making money not allowed here? What do you want? I'm busy. As I glared at him, the overly skinny, bleary-eyed clerk let out a tired sigh. Whoa, that's your reply? I came to tell you that the police are on their way to gather up sea urchins. Before the clerk finished his sentence, my PC had been closed and thrown into my bag. Hey, wait! The employee grabbed my shoulder as I tried to push him aside and exit the booth. Though he was thin, he was still muscular, strong enough to remind you that he was an adult. Still, I always kept a set amount of money in my breast pocket for times like this. I grabbed it and thrust it into his hands. Took the change. I put on my hat, shouldered my bag, and ran down a narrow corridor. Wondering what was going on in the booth, a bunch of guys who looked like they just mumble useless replies to any police questioning peeked through the cracks from their boots and wondering if someone had been arrested. After sliding past the dirty counter, I made it into the store's even filthier exit. The chipped away paint and rust made the already cramped building even more claustrophobic. We went straight down the hallway towards the open air. There were stairs if I turned left at the end of the hall, but I had never had any plans to use them in the first place. Without a moment's hesitation, I kicked off the floor, jumping as high as I could. Passing over the concrete wall, my body flew over the street. Because of the cafe was on the 5th floor of the building, there was a heck of a view below me. I jumped towards the wall of the building opposite me, and then kicked off the wall, aiming back towards the wall of the first building. Once the sole of my foot hit a pipe on the wall, I jumped straight up with all my might and resolve. What the hell? Human genes have been fine-tuned for living on Earth for over 1 million years. So with some weight training, anyone can perform feats like this on the moon, where gravity was lower. What you couldn't do was to allow yourself to miss your daily training. Jumping from wall to wall, I quickly reached the 14th floor of the building next door. Wow! I guess my heart rate did go up a bit. I glanced down to see a pair of blue uniformed policemen looking bored as they tapped their batons on their shoulders and climbed the stairs. It seemed that the clerk wasn't playing a prank on me when he gave me that tip. I already paid my thanks to him when I handed that money though. By now he should have probably used the change from it to kick back with a store-bought beer. For a moment I opened up my bag in the hallway and flipped open my PC screen. I ran off in the middle of the trade, though my position hadn't changed. I should be able to get at least a weak wireless connection out here. If I were lucky, prices would have risen and I would have home free, but usually at times like this. Figures. After hanging my head in disappointment, I closed down my losing positions and called it a day. Nothing good can come from wandering downtown in the middle of the day. After jumping from one building to the next, I decided to walk down a deserted hallway toward my favorite Chinese restaurant. It was a time of day where most people my age would be at school, so walking around carelessly would get you chased down by cops before you knew it. Until you turned 18, the legal age here, it was mandatory that you belonged to some sort of educational institution. Some people would say that this was a good thing, while others grumbled something about government-funded programs. I fell into neither camp. My way of dealing with systems I didn't like was to quietly escape them, not to loudly criticize them. On that note, this area, with all its complicated passages and extreme elevation changes, it's not odd to see the 7th floor of one building be next to the basement of another. Was convenient for people like me. Not to mention the overgrown vegetation here and there that acted as good cover. These plants weren't originally included in the city plans, but had leaked out one of the many lunar laboratories where they were messing with their genes. Supposedly, genes had tons of factors that expressed themselves differently depending on the environment, so a lot of plants and animals started acting strangely as soon as they were brought to the moon. There were even people saying that life forms on Earth could have originated from outer space and brought to Earth via the moon. Some of these plants grew so well on the moon's inorganic matter that you might wonder if they'd been around here for a million years. Of course, it wasn't as if the plants were free from the laws of physics. Nitrogen and other nutrients for them were often brought over from Earth, though I hadn't heard of any worries that the surface of the moon would be taken over by the greenery. This applied to more than just plants. As for the humans here, it didn't matter how many ultra-elite think tanks came to energize the lunar economy and its industries. Life here just wasn't sustainable without sending a lot of things over from Earth. According to the government statements, even if the orbital elevator were to stop moving today, there was currently enough biomass here to create an enclosed, recycling-based environment. In other words, we'd be able to eat food, crap it out, then use that crap to grow even more food, and so on. They'd be able to make a ton of electricity with solar panels while collecting direct sunlight to use as a super hot source of heat, so maybe they're right. I mean, people even say that Earth was in more danger environmentally, since they're all relying on oil and nuclear power. I didn't know who was right. Whatever the case, I had dreams. And if it meant making my dreams come true, I didn't care if I was on Earth or on the moon. After all, my dream was to stand at the forefront of humanity. Wow! This kid is trying to get to places. It'd be a place where you could only look forward and live by advancing onward. Who cared about what happened to the world behind you? Okay, alright. I think I sort of get his character. And if I couldn't make this dream come true, then there'd be no reason for me to live. That is why, to put it logically, I never worried a single bit about the moon's environment or whatever. What I worried was about how much money I made and how fast I reached my goals. While I was thinking about these things, I passed through the thickly vegetated tunnel towards high ground. It was a clear day, as it always was. On the other side of a translucent membrane, the visible half of the mist-covered Earth looked small. The sky over the lunar city was wrapped in a see-through dome, and right beyond it was outer space. Gravity was weak on the moon, so you couldn't naturally keep large amounts of gases stored up on the surface. Also, while apparently each 24-hour day on Earth had a morning, afternoon, and night, which was followed by the next day by another morning, the moon alternated between 2 weekdays and 2 weeknights. However, the human body cycle was set differently thanks to tens of thousands of years of living on Earth. Because most of the people living on the moon were immigrants from Earth, its dome was adjusted to give up light in an Earth-like way. They even had sprinklers attached to it so it could rain. However, I'd only seen things like downpours and thunderstorms in videos. When it rained here, it was always a drizzle. Strong winds never blew here. The only winds felt here were the slow, coiling movement of the atmosphere due to centrifugal and Coriolis forces, as well as the gentle breeze of the air inside the dome being mechanically circulated. I strayed from the street onto a grass-covered cliff and jumped upward with a grunt. I kicked off a tree branch and rotated my body to land on the top of the tunnel. This was a box seat where you can look down on the greater part of the city. I grabbed some beef jerky out of my bag and bit into it. According to the guys who came from Earth, this wasn't at all close to the real thing, but it's the only beef jerky I knew. There were a number of cities on the moon, and the one I lived in was the very first city to be created. I could get a clear view of the whole thing from here. The spot in front of me were pointed skyscrapers sprung upward one after the other. Was called Newton City. It wasn't like entry here was regulated. However, it had the feel of a special zone where only certain people can enter, since it was full of giant corporate cities. Even public places like shopping malls and parks were overrun with police and city regulations. Most wealth here was created in Newton City, and you could find famous tycoons with assets worth over 10 billion mools all over the place. If you had that much wealth, you'd undoubtedly be able to be on the forefront when humanity took its next step. Money could make just about any desire you might have in this world come true. In this world, money ruled all.